Hey everybody. So today I'm gonna be telling you how I came to want to examine air travel consumer reports. These are monthly reports published by the Department of Transportation. They offer a number of different tables. Um, but first of all, why did I choose this? I don't fly very frequently, and in August of 2021, I took a really long flight, and I had paid a little extra for some extra leg room. And on the way back home, the one-way journey got split up, which wasn't a big deal, but they put me in economy, and I know that is really miserable for a lot of people, and I've had really, really restless legs since I was a toddler, basically. So it was just awful, and I had leg spasms the whole time, and ended up filing a formal complaint, really because I was trying to get a refund, because it had taken me a long time to save for the trip, and I wasn't seeking a full refund. I was just seeking a refund for the what I had paid for that portion of the journey. For extra, I had paid for extra legroom and didn't get extra legroom. So it was through filing that complaint that I became aware of this monthly report and all the tables in it. So these tables are available at transportation.gov, and these reports, they've been issued, or at least they're online since 1998, and they're all pretty similar. In 2016, they did start providing granular data on type of civil right complaint. And then I think in 2003, they changed some of the complaint categories. But this is an example of one of the tables. And this is really the main table. This is the table that I went to when the FAA sent me a link to this report, because I was like, okay, wow, now they sent me, they said, well, there's a report, you can use to make consumer decisions. And I thought that it would be, that it would reflect years of compiled data, but it's just a monthly report. So it's of limited help because you're just looking at 1 month at a time, and you can't compare how a carrier has performed over time. So I added another 10 years of data, but I also used this previously during the semester for other types of analysis. But anyway, you can see there's 12 types of complaints, and what I did was I basically copied and pasted in monthly tabs, and then I used concatenation to clean up the airline names into singular cells, and then all these cells over here that transpose this horizontal table into a long vertical table that's useful for Tableau, these are all formulas. So once I've copied and pasted and cleaned this just automatically happens. So in the end, I had 10 years of compiled data on complaints, and then I needed to put those in context. So I've compiled, I think, maybe 5 years, or no, maybe just 2 years of emplanements. So that's how many singular passenger journeys, and that's just available within that same report, the air travel consumer report. So this is the October 2022 report, which reflects data for 2 months previous. So if you want to look at this yourself, just go to 2022, go to October, and then go to page 52, and you'll see the same page. So I don't have the file anymore that has the data as I input it into the vertical, or rather horizontal table to the right, but I did this the same way I did complaints, where I would just copy and paste the table, clean it up, and then I had formulas that would just automatically transpose it into a more vertical table. But I didn't have enough, I had added another 10 years to the complaint data, but I just didn't have enough time to go back and compile more data on employment. So luckily, while not, I mean, really, I think this is one of the only ones, and then another one we'll see in a second. There's not a lot of these available as compiled tables from the Department of Transportation. But luckily, I did find a downloadable table on employments. Unfortunately, it doesn't offer the granular information as far as by employments by airline. And it's not a problem that it doesn't offer complaints, because that's something I can derive from the complaint table. And I adjusted the, so this is the pardon me, this is the domestic employments for October 2002. And this adjusted column is a column that I added because the employments from this table are just for airlines with at least 1/2 of total domestic scheduled service passenger revenue. So I'm just reading that from the bottom of this screenshot of page 52 within this slide. And I took my personally compiled data on employments and compared it to this total, because this total, I don't think this total has this domestic column. I don't think it has the limitation of contributing to a certain amount of revenue. So I found that in general, these are about 0.91% less than the table that I had compiled from the report. So I just added this adjusted column, and that's what I've used. This dashboard is comprised of 4 worksheets: a time series that replaces complaint data after February 2020 with forecasted data, and a time series that shows real data. Likewise, there are respective tables that show forecasted values and the real data. Regarding the question, did COVID-19 increase awareness of the formal complaint process? I believe the dashboard indicates that the pandemic did increase awareness of the formal complaint process. So we can see that in April of 2020, about 3 people of every 1,000 were filing a formal complaint. A lot of these resulted from complaints about refunds. That's where we really see that spike come in, whereas if I change it to another category such as, let's say, disability, that really had no particular spike in the outbreak of the pandemic. But I can see if I look at the time closer to our current time, for example, if I highlight June 2022, I can see that the estimate, so Tableau's analytics, just using the forecast feature, when they take about these 20 or so years of data and forecast the next 2 or 3 years, they're only predicting about 0.01 as far as complaints per 1,000 employments. But what we really have going on right now is anywhere from, if I just look at these roughly, anywhere from about a 3 times to 4 times as much complaints happening post pandemic. Okay, so I have kind of a second visualization presentation, and the following tables on these next slides, they are the tables that I'm using for my next presentation of visuals. So I wanted to use the self-reported, the airline reported mishandled baggage to understand or try to figure out how many customers might actually have baggage issues as opposed to the number of people that are filing formal complaints of the baggage category. So I had already compiled about 12 months of this data from the monthly reports, but lo and behold, it was available for download. Not a lot of I think I said this earlier, not a lot of there was little compilation of these monthly tables available as download, but there was this table on mishandled baggage and mishandled wheelchairs and scooters, and it offers about 5 years of data. It goes back to April 2016. So this is just the raw download. So there was a problem with the downloaded wheelchair and scooter data, and that was that for some reason the emplaned baggage, or for my tables, I called this field bags emplaned, there were a lot of missing data values, but they did have data on passengers emplaned. So what I did was I went back to my tables on employments and the year or so of data I had compiled on mishandled bags, and I took the average employments and average really doesn't make any difference here because this is as granular as the data gets. But I joined these two tables in Tableau, and then I took a granular look by airline to see what percentage of bags are emplaned per passenger. So we can see here Alaska Airlines in November, they've got 2,300,000 people. This is at the top of the table here on the right. They've got 300,000 so people flying, and those people are emplaning about 1.5 million bags, so that's about 0.6 bags per passenger. So where the average is important is here in the total. So the average for those 12 months is 0.65, and I can see that the percentage of bags emplaned is really consistent from month to month. So all these figures are representing the average of the 12 months, more or less. So then I took individual total averages for each airline and use them in formulas to replace that missing data. So you can see the formula here in this screenshot in the middle, and then all the yellow fields in the table to the far right are data that I replaced with those formulas. So we saw previously that very few people file a formal complaint when they fly. Of course, some passengers might not have any reason to file a complaint, or others might be aware of the formal complaint process but feel like it's not worthwhile, or they're simply too busy to file a complaint. There are 12 complaint categories, and one of these is baggage. And so this dual axis is showing just baggage complaints, complaints per 1K employments. Again, we're seeing that per baggage, there's not even one person per 1,000 people filing a formal complaint about baggage. But there's also another table in the same monthly report that is airline reported mishandled baggage, and that's this blue line. So this seems more representative of maybe news that we hear about baggage woes at the airport. So my first approach was to do this dual axis time series to see if there's any notable relationship between airline reported baggage mishandling and consumer complaints about baggage. But I really can't see any discernible pattern, and that's because I have to synchronize the axes. So that means that in order to have a reliable visualization, the right and the left have to represent the same numbers, so that I have a consistent numerical indicator running through the entire graph. So at first, without a synchronized axis, it looks like there might be a pattern, but this is not a good visualization because you can see on the right my scale is going from 0 only to 0.16, and that's the scale for complaints per 1,000 passenger. The report refers to it as enplanements, and that's just simply like one passenger journey. So if there are 700 passengers on one plane, that's 700 enplanements. But like I said, I don't have the same axis on the right and the left. I've got this really small range, and then I've got a range going from 0 to 150 for the airline reported baggage mishandling. So it's really going to help discern or identify a consistent relationship between consumer baggage complaints and airline reported mishandled baggage is the use of box plots. So along the bottom here, I've got box plots. I have a bar graph at the top, but both reflect the difference between airline reported mishandled baggage and consumer baggage complaints. So I can see if I click on American, that's going to filter the bar graph for bars that represent the difference between bags mishandled reported by the airline. So I can see the airlines reported 118,306 mishandled bags, but only 37 customers have filed a formal complaint. So the difference is 118,232. And I can see the same point here. I know it's going to be this point, this uppermost point, because it's the uppermost point here in the bar graph. But I can see the same point plotted here on the American Airlines box plot. So in a box plot, you have half of your values in this wider center portion called the middle quartile. So between October 2016 to August 2022, I have 71 values. So if I've got half of those values in this wider gray portion, I've got about 35 of these values here in the wider gray area. So the usefulness of the box plot is that I can see how much these different values vary within a singular airline. The less these whiskers extend from the wider dark and light gray rectangle, the more likely it is I can derive a dependable factor from that box plot, and the factor is actually going to be the median. So the median, like I said, I have 71 values. Let's imagine I've got 71 values and 60 of those values are a 1 and 11 of those values are a 15. So the median is just you take all the values, you put them in order, and then you identify the middle point. So in that case, one of those ones would fall as the middle point. So it's not the average, but it's just the middle of the ordered numbers. So the middle of the ordered numbers for American, 38,689. So like I said, American, the values are a little all over the place because these whiskers extend farther from the wider gray portion. SkyWest looks a little more dependable. And I also have about 6 years of data for SkyWest. Virgin looks dependable, but I don't have much data for Virgin. So the box plot's going to be less reliable. But then I realized any value I'm extrapolating needs to be applied as a multiplication factor, not as a standard difference. So that's going to offer me a % increase. So basically this is the same, it's very similar, this worksheet, but I have used averages here instead of a subtractive difference. And then I just looked at the box plots, found box plots with minimal spread, but also with enough data, and noted those median values. And then I applied those median values in my table so that I came up with a column that reflected not only real complaints, but the estimated complaints that people might have. and created this visualization. So here I've eliminated all airlines that did not have enough data or had far too much spread in the data. So basically what we can see here is we can see the real complaints per 1,000 enplanements or passenger journeys and the estimated real complaints, which, I mean, kind of in a way that doesn't really make any sense, but really what I'm trying to understand here is how many people, regardless of whether we can see obviously not a lot of people are filing formal complaints, but I'm trying to understand how many people are likely having issues with baggage, with refunds. The reason I started exploring this data was I filed a complaint where an airline I had paid for I think it's called premium. It wasn't like first class, but I had paid for a seat with more legroom, and the flight got rerouted and I was put in economy, and that's torture for a lot of people. It's really torture for me. I have very restless legs. I have since I was a child, and I filed this complaint, and the FAA, I became aware of this monthly report because the FAA said I could look at it to make consumer decisions. You know, it was just a copy and paste statement. But when I look at consumer complaints and I see, you know, that maybe 50 people out of 10,000 are filing a complaint, I don't really think that reflects, and I know, you know, things may be overblown in the media, but there's a lot of stories in the media that we hear about, both sides about, we hear about unruly passengers, but we also hear about all these horror stories about canceled flights or airlines that refuse to give refunds. And I have not successfully gotten a refund for, it's called a involuntary downgrade. So this idea is, okay, well, for Delta Airlines, you know, maybe a more realistic estimate is that perhaps every 77 people out of 1,000 have a refund issue. Perhaps 49 out of 1,000 have a flight problem. Perhaps 18 out of every 1,000 have a customer service problem, or perhaps 25 out of every 1,000 have a disability complaint that they're not filing, but they have a legitimate disability lack of accommodation from the airline. And so this is really just an idea of, okay, well, how can I look at these monthly reports that the FAA puts out and have a real understanding of what's my risk if I fly with American, what's my risk if I fly with Delta, how likely am I to experience an issue with a refund, an issue with a fare, an issue with baggage. So I think a lot of data analysis is never really final. In a way, it's all exploratory. There aren't any other mandatory reports that match a complaint category as well as baggage. But I think that with consideration, I could probably devise a way to compare tables on excessive tarmac delays or arrival departure timeliness, and see if these resonate with the newly estimated number of flight problem customer complaints that I generated with the estimations I made based off of the median average difference between reported mishandled baggage and the number of formal complaints people are actually making. You know, I'm not happy that I never ended up getting a refund from that airline, but I am grateful that it turned me onto the monthly report. There's a lot of tables in the monthly report, and there's a lot of other data available through the Department of Transportation. So the monthly report doesn't even include anything on airline financials, but there's a lot of data on airline financials. So that, of course, can be compared to complaints, to excessive tarmac delays, to see if there are any relationships there. But it's an interesting area and one that I think I'll continue to look into. Thanks, everybody.